Hi, everybody. I'm Dee Lisa, the Dream Doula for Women. Did you know you dream for 2 hours every night? And inside of those dreams is intuition that you can use to live your best life when you're awake. That's what I help women do.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alexis Kennedy, and I teach people about the neuroscience of stress and how to reverse burnout.
Burnout. Oh my gosh, let's talk about burnout, girl. We were just talking before we recorded about how we're actually a little bit burned out making social media posts. I've been posting 3 times a day on TikTok for 11 months now.
Wow. Wow.
Now, sometimes I take a weekend off or I say to myself, I don't have it. I'm gonna get some other video I made 6 months ago and put it back up. But most of the time, 3 TikToks a day that go into Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube Shorts. So
Wow.
3 a day that go to all those places. And what's really super fun, besides being burnt out, is people say, "Oh, I see you everywhere." And they also feel like they know me when
Mhm.
we actually talk in person, which is cool. I want people to know me before they work with me. But how do we not be burned out in this world we live in, Alexis? We are constantly bombarded with, should we do this? We better do that, and a long list of this and this and that. And it's a burnout world.
Yeah, I'm trying not to get burnt out doing social media as well,
Mm.
because we're just so overwhelmed with so much information, and that just like hits our body at every single level, and it impacts our sleep. So we're not going to be dreaming properly if we don't sort of find our calm and our balance. But it's but there's also a wealth of goodness and good information on social media. So, that's why I keep doing the videos, is that people really want to learn about how to take care of themselves. So the message is more important than the messenger for me. I'm going to just keep making it as long as people are consuming it, because I was really burned out and had to learn how to take care of myself if I was going to take care of others. So um, it's I get energy from people saying this was really amazing and I needed to hear that today. That's like the best energy booster, is seeing people connect.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I know a woman who just her TED Talk won't be up yet, but she just did a TED Talk on women creatives in the workplace and burnout. And she found a statistic that 70% of creatives feel like they're burned out at work. 70%.
Yeah.
But most of them don't tell anyone or do anything about it.
Yeah, we're just not having conversations in the workplace about burnout. And I mean, Harvard studies are showing 50% of workforces are suffering due to burnout and people quitting. So it's universal. It's from I just did a webinar on burnout for an International Association of Women Travel Agents. And it's every possible career, because
Okay,
we've got
wait. Women travel agents are burnout? Don't they
yes.
get to travel for free?
But I mean, the travel industry is constantly changing. We went from
Mm.
COVID to like a big boomerang of people revenge traveling, and now we've got a lot of international chaos and trips being canceled. And so, I mean, there's so many ripples from politics that then add stress to every single job, every single career, and globally. I mean, every single country is trying to understand and navigate the chaos that's coming out of the United States right now. So our tolerance and our patience for kids, parents, you know, everyday life up and downs are going to be taxed more when we've got chaos in media and politics and everything else.
Do you think it's more chaotic and more prevalent to be burned out at work or maybe even in life in the USA than it is in other countries, like, say, if we're a European country where you get 6 weeks vacation every year?
Yeah, the burnout rates are definitely lower in countries that have um, better healthcare, recognition of mental health stress, vacations. One of the biggest problems in the US is that they don't take their vacation days. We work through, we're afraid to unplug because we're worried that life will pass us by or that there'll be some negative consequence at work. And That's even something as simple as sick days. I was just watching someone yesterday who'd moved from England to Canada, and she was talking about how confused she was that when she took sick day, people are like, take your time, take what you need. And whereas she felt in the UK there was less support for sick leave. And, so it's not just the US, there's definitely cultural differences though between countries.
Yeah. I see people working and working and working and working and working. And then there used to be a statistic, I grew up in Seattle, that if you worked for Boeing, so back in the day before Microsoft and Facebook and all the tech companies had businesses there, Boeing was the major employer. And if you were usually a man, you worked for Boeing your entire career and you retired, in the next 5 years, you would be dead.
Mhm. Well, the
So
compassion fatigue burnout research came out of medicine, and it's the same thing with a lot of doctors. They burn the candle
doctors,
at both ends, and then within 5 years of retiring, they're out gardening and they drop dead of a heart attack because if you're always in fight or flight, it burns through your physical resources. So burnout, you may push through burnout, but it's gonna decrease the quality or the time of your retirement.
yeah, yeah, wow. So how do people get around, get through? Uh, I suppose the first step is noticing that you are burned out.
Yeah, noticing that you're overreacting to things or you're constantly feeling worn out, or when you do take a vacation day or take a vacation week, you get sick on the first day and spend the rest of the time in bed. It's just that you've used up all of your resources and reserves by pushing through. So sometimes we have to say, I need to unplug. I need to take this weekend and not respond to work emails or not leave everything at work. That you also recognize our diminished returns. If you're pushing through and doing a 10-hour workday, you're working at half the efficiency or less than saying, I'm going to take a break and we'll get back to this tomorrow. I'm going to go have my good night's sleep, my dreams, my restorative time. And then, recognizing and pushing through, it's not our best selves.
Yeah, there was a book that came out a few years back now. Was it Daniel Pink? I think the book's name was When. And he
Mhm.
talked about what time during the day or what time during the week would be the appropriate time to do things. Some people are morning people and they do their best work in the morning. I'm like an afternoon when all the shops are all the restaurants are closed between lunch and dinner. That's when I want to go out and have lunch. I'm like, it's 3 o'clock. Why is the restaurant closed? That's kind of my best time of day. So in the morning, I let things just kind of la 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 la, and have found that working in the afternoon is best for me. But do you think that kind of time blocking works for most people when they're maybe not when they're already burnt out, but before they get burnt out?
It works both before and when you're burned out
Mm.
because when we're multitasking, when we're trying to juggle a whole bunch of things, we're just overwhelming our nervous system. So, it's having sometimes you just need to leave your huge long to-do list and say, okay, I've got a sticky note and I can put two things on here exactly. And this is the only thing that I'm going to think about for the next 4 hours. And you stick that sticky note to your desk, or when you're at home, say, no, I'm not going to think about this. And letting your brain unplug and only focusing on two things, it recharges you and it makes you more efficient.
Oh, I like that. I actually have a note on my wall that says the one big thing for today. So I took it down to one.
That's good.
The one big thing for today, if I get that done and the rest of the day is like, oh, squirrel, I'm gonna make another TikTok or whatever, then I feel like I've done okay. I've eaten the big frog, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love complex to-do lists and systems, and I love crossing things off my list, but sometimes just seeing that whole list just puts me into fight or flight. So I need to turn off my um, whatever electronics I have my to-do list on and go back to basics and paper and pencil and just doing one thing at a time. And even then, even if I just say, okay, for the next hour, I'm just going to do this, um, you feel your body relax, you feel your brain re-engage, you feel your breathing deepen. And all of those things, even though we're still working, just not working frantically and frenetically gives us a break.
Because you know that you're going to do it for an hour.
Mhm.
I love that. When I was a real estate broker manager, I had 7 staff people and 65 agents, and constantly getting interrupted all day long. And it was sometimes an emergency.
Yeah.
Uh, Not really. I mean, it's an emergency, you call 911, but it seemed like an emergency to the person that was having the conundrum. And I read a study back then that said if you're interrupted from a task, it takes you 20 minutes to get
Mhm.
back into it. Is that actually true?
It is true because again, not only do you, as soon as that interruption comes, it triggers our fight or flight. So it lets
Mm.
us know something's changed, something's different. So our brain really puts all of its energies into survival and it turns off our sort of deeper thinking. It moves the blood from the outer part of the brain to the inside. So even when we've mustered enough brain cells to solve whatever the crisis is, and the crisis is probably try this email or photocopy it or call this number, we've pushed it off. It takes a minute for our body to go back into that state of rest and relaxation to reduce the stress, to reduce the adrenaline, to have our brain sort of say, okay, we're safe. That wasn't a lion standing next to the watering hole. It was just some random breeze. We're safe again, and we can go back to focusing on our deeper thinking. So we're just not as efficient mentally if we're constantly being interrupted. It hijacks our nervous system.
Yeah, and I like to work for myself in 20-minute blocks when I'm feeling really scattered. So
Mhm.
I'll just set the timer for 20 minutes and do something, and then if I really get into it, I'll go 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, but right now I have a box that has all my files in it, and all the stuff that used to be in that box is all scattered around on a table, and then it's spilled over to the countertop. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to teach this class, and then I'm dreamed up this other class, and I'm a visual artist, and so I like to see things on
Mhm.
paper and write things on paper and make paintings. So that I was like, wow, this is like the inside of my brain, isn't it? All just laid out on this table. So for you, you like lists, so you can see it like that. I'm not really a list. I've tried lists and crossing things off. That doesn't satisfy me as much as taking the papers that I've just drawn all over and putting them in the recycling.
Mhm. Well, whatever method tells your brain and your nervous system, that's an accomplishment. I got that done.
Yeah.
That's no longer hanging over me. That's healing for our body and our mind.
Now, do you think it's also good to give somebody or yourself, gives yourself a reward for you're feeling burned out? You've obviously in your mind, you're telling yourself you don't have enough time, you're never going to finish this. So many people want you, and you get something accomplished and give yourself a reward. Does
And
that work for
it,
people?
it works for almost everybody because we are still animals. We're driven by drives, and we want to feel that we've got our needs being met. So if we do a task we don't like eating the frog or doing something that's not as easy, like a sales call or something, then being able to say, you know what, I'm just gonna sit down and put my feet up for a minute and listen to a podcast I like for 10 minutes or do something that's a reward. It again, it calms down our nervous system. It helps us integrate the stuff that we've just done, and it's the best thing. I mean, going for a walk, excuse me, just any being out in nature, going for a walk around the block, that can be the best reward because it resets your nervous system and it gives you time away from distractions and new input. And you can then sort of store away the memories, the things that you just did. It gives you new thoughts and you make new connections. It's like the best creativity as well.
I love that. Yes, I do. I live in a great walkable neighborhood right now. So I like to go in between tasks and appointments, like going for a walk.
Yeah.
There's horses at the end of the block, and then a little Leave It to Beaver neighborhood that I live in. And if I walk a little bit further, there's a river preserve. I can walk for a couple hours if I want to, if my body will allow it. And I'm usually getting the biggest brainstorms, solutions to conundrums that have been troubling me while I'm walking. And just there's a bird, there's some clouds. Ooh, look at that flower. And it's a really good way to settle the mind.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good reset. I mean, I work with trauma victims, and even when I'm working with like 911 responders where they go from like this really frantic call where it's life or death, and then all of a sudden, police or fire show up, so the call ends and they're supposed to get on the next call right away. Well, their nervous system is just like buzzing. So,
Yeah.
we'll say just go up and down the stairs, do a flight of stairs, and then come back and sit at your desk. And that little bit of movement, that change of scenery, that message from, your brain to your body saying, I'm safe, the emergency's over, means that they can then be composed and ready to take the next call.
I never thought about that specifically if you're a 911 call and then you never know if they're okay.
Yeah, that is very hard because they don't always know the outcome.
Yeah.
They don't know the outcome.
One of
But
my sisters is a medical and court interpreter, and she never knows the outcome either. She's
yeah,
there during the surgery, never sees the people again, or during the court case, never sees the. I mean, sometimes she sees them out in public, but she's not supposed to know them. Kind of
yeah,
like being a therapist, right? I don't
yeah.
know. Oh, so what is your perfect, you have a coaching program that you're creating right now. What is your perfect person and how would it be working with you? Let's talk about that for a minute so people that are listening to this can connect with you and find you in the world.
Well, I'm hoping to work with people who live their life through their brains, attorneys and academics and the people of the sort of world I've come from, because we just sort of think that we can solve everything on our own and just push through. And when you understand and are curious about the science behind why our body responds certain ways, why our just constant go, go, go drive is taking a toll on our body, that's when we can sort of say, oh, wait, I need to learn more about this and make a change. And so I'm hoping to work one-on-one with some people who really want to learn how to, usually they've been burnt out at some level, but how do we make the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of our career where we're resourced and we're taking care of ourselves, because then we can get back to loving the job that we got into because it was exciting and stressful and important. But, for us to be able to stay in it and to enjoy our retirement, we need to make self-care our healthcare priority. And that's something we're not taught as professionals. We're not even taught that in, the mental health areas. We learn about pathology and brokenness, but we don't learn a lot about prevention and maintenance for excellence.
Now, is it, if you're an attorney, is it like on the TV shows? They expect you to have a lot of billable hours, work all day, work all night, come in on the weekends, and that would be why you're burned out.
Yeah, you're burned out because you care, because you're walking alongside people in some of the worst moments of their life. Plus, here's the secret about law, nobody wins. So even if you go to court and you win everything you want, you still have had to go through court and spent money on lawyers and taken time off. And, everybody is always a loser once it starts, a lawsuit starts, you're always going to be nobody wants to go to court. Nobody wants to be part of the legal system. So it's exciting to help people get justice, but the entire process is exhausting and stressful. And it's like any other service industry. You're fighting for clients, you're fighting to get enough billable hours. And you're also in court or, helping people with really unsatisfactory outcomes, because you can never cure what went wrong. You can just sort of offer money or a bit of a remedy, but you're still having to live in whatever it was that went wrong for a while.
Yeah, that's beautifully put because as I said, I was a real estate broker for 35 years, and somebody said once in a workshop, he was a lawyer teaching us something about law. It's not if you're going to be sued, it's when. And he said, being sued is like having an owie. And you don't put a band-aid on this owie, you put money on it.
Yeah.
Goes away. And I thought that was like so crass, but so real because it's, yeah, there's a settlement. It's usually someone gets some money and then they're sort of happy, but
Yeah.
no one's ever really happy. Nobody wants to hire those. That must also be part of being burned out as an attorney. No one really wants you.
Yeah.
They get
But
you
to be
because
fair,
they have to.
dentists feel the same way. Nobody wants to go see the dentist and they're stressed about it. Doctors, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of professions where we're helping, but again, we're seeing people in their worst moments or when they need help or when they're in pain. So as humans, we mirror that pain. We pick up on that stress, and
Sure,
that takes a toll on us.
sure. I wonder if that statistic is still true that the highest percentage of suicides in professions was dentists. It was at one point.
My dad's was an architect, and he used to argue with my brother-in-law, who's a dentist, who had the higher suicide rates. So
Architects or dentists?
I know, but we've got a suicide crisis in medicine with doctors and nurses, and of course, our veterans have huge suicide rates. And unfortunately, in law, we're seeing more judges um, have have spikes in suicide. So as our entire all the professionals get sort of crushed, suicide is the worst possible outcome of that unaddressed stress.
That would be the bad, bitter end of not dealing with being burned out, wouldn't
Mhm.
it?
Yeah, the pain just overwhelms you.
Mm, wow. So I know you're still finalizing the program, but you're working one-on-one with people or in groups, and how long is the program going to be?
My individual coaching program will start in the summer, and that will be one-on-one time with me as well as some groups and an online course because I just love sharing the science. I think the more you know about it, the easier it is to prioritize it.
Yeah.
But I also do a lot of work speaking to organizations and webinars. So I speak at least twice a month to different groups around the country, sometimes in person, sometimes on online webinars. And that's been really great because it's just really satisfying to see how people feel so much better when they realize they're not alone going through this stressful situation, that they're not alone feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this, or how am I going to keep driving into to work, or, getting on those phone calls that I have to do. And seeing normalizing for people that this is, you know, changing the way you feel about your job, changing the way you feel about yourself, but there's a way to reverse it. That's an amazing thing to be able to connect with people on.
That's so beautiful. I love what you're doing in the world. And let's tell people how they can find you.
My website is simple. It's just recharge.how, HOW. And that's got information on joining my email list because I do free webinars on sleep and unplugging and things like that once they've joined my email list. And also there's links to my social media because people are finding me now on TikTok and Instagram as I just share all of the science. I needed to learn it because I got burnt out after 30 years of working in the field of human trafficking. And I do a lot of work with obviously the professionals in my field because we've really seen humans in some of their worst moments. And it's hard not to be weighed down by all. I mean, it's exciting to help people, but um, humans can be really pretty awful to each other. So finding a way to shake off the stories we've heard and the people we've helped, we're better at helping others than helping ourselves.
Mm. Oh, beautiful. Well, so it was so lovely to chat with you and hear how people can get out of burnout. They can find ways to recharge themselves. And if you want to know more, find Alexis. Thanks, everybody.